Mary Beth Franklin is a contributing editor at Investment News and a nationally recognized expert and author on many retirement security issues. She writes regularly about the latest research and thought leadership on retirement income planning, and also spent years covering Capitol Hill. So she has the perfect combination of expertise for today's event. We're excited to have her wealth of experience with us in leading our first session. The campaign overall is called Funding Our Future, to reflect the fact that when it comes to the retirement security of our society, we're all in this together. But there's unquestionably a personal component to this conversation, which is why we've titled this first session, Funding Your Future, the Building Blocks of Financial Security. So I'm going to invite Mary Beth up here to get us started.
Thank you, Shad. What a great introduction. And it says push to talk. I think that's supposed to go green. Can you hear me? Thank you, Shai, for the great introduction. And I am going to be joined here by Jamie Hopkins, who is the guru of all things financial planning. He's with the American College of Financial Planning and is very instrumental in the curriculum for the Certified Financial Planning Program and other designations. So he created for all of you a fascinating quiz. And I'm going to ask Jamie, push hard, I think, because I did the same thing. Do we have a red button here? We're good? That he created a specialized quiz for all of you here, and I think it's a good news, bad news story. Jamie, tell us a little bit about why you created this type of quiz and what were the top line results.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for having me here today, and thanks for joining, and hopefully besides just for lunch, that's good to start. But yeah, so when we were talking about me coming here and what I should do, a lot of my research, I look at financial literacy, retirement income literacy rates across the country, and I wrote a book on that too, but I thought, well, that's a fun thing. People like taking online quizzes too. They just, find out which Game of Thrones character you are, how much you know about your own financial planning. And so we really did create this, hopefully for the group that's here. And as Mary Beth said, it's kind of good news, bad news. The good news is the group that took this here, we had 120 respondents, and I think that's probably about how many people we have in the room right now. But so you're slightly kind of more literate than the average American, so that's good. The downside is there's still a lot of things the group didn't know. Average score about a 75%, which is a C, so if you were in college, you probably wouldn't be super psyched with that. Kind of still a passing score, but about half of the respondents were below a 70 and about half the respondents were above. And then we really saw kind of general financial literacy, understanding inflation, the group did very well on. Then when we actually asked kind of some specifics about Roth tax treatment and the federal thrift savings plan, actually kind of surprisingly poor results there. How many people in the room are in the federal thrift savings plan?
Raise high, because if you are, you're very lucky.
It's a good plan, and it does seem like a lot of you might not know exactly how it works for you. So that's kind of the downside.
Talk about that for a second, because the TSP, as you know, the Thrift Savings Plan available to all federal employees, is actually the largest 401k equivalent in the world. It also has some great investment choices at incredibly low rates.
Yeah, the fees in there are incredibly low.
Right. And the amazing part of it is the match. And that's the part where you didn't do so well. So Jamie, talk about how does somebody in this room max out their TSP contribution?
Yeah, so the government does put in kind of 1% for everyone, whether or not you participate. Now, that's not a whole lot. That's not going to get you to a secure retirement, right, saving 1%. So the encouragement there is with a match. And what we asked, I believe, was 3%. You get the maximum employer government match there. And we had 63% of respondents actually say, yes, that was the correct answer. Well, that's wrong. It's actually 5%. So the first 3% get matched dollar for dollar, 100%. And then the next 2% gets a 50% match. So to get the full kind of 4% government match, you need to contribute 5% of your kind of basic pay is really how it's defined. And that'll get you in there at 10%. So they'll be putting in 1, you put in 5, you get a 4 match, that's 10%. That's actually not so bad. If you start early, right, you're in your early 20s, that's a decent start. Now, it might not be quite to the level we want it at, but it's a good start for saving.
Well, let's put this in perspective. General theory these days is, what do you need to save for retirement? It's roughly 15% of your gross income from the very beginning. And most of you would go, 15%? I've got student loans, I've got bills, I've got rent. How do I do this? Well, think of it this way. That's the total. If you were in the TSP and managed to put in 5%, and the government essentially matches and contributes the other 5%, that's 10% off the top. You're 2/3 of the way there. And even better, if you put in 5% and you're getting 5% from the government, you have gotten 100% return on your money before you invested a dime. As a certified financial planner, I can't guarantee that anyplace else. That's pretty impressive. Now, I'm usually on the Hill at least once a year during, Saving for Retirement Week, speaking to young Hill staffers. And I do give them the same spiel saying, boy, you are so fortunate to be in the TSP. And if you are probably defaulted at 3%. Well, guess what? If you stay at 3%, even with that government match, your retirement's going to look a whole lot like college. And do you know why? You're going to be eating a lot of ramen noodles. And when someone asks you for your ID, it's not going to be to get into a bar. It's going to be for your Walgreens senior discount. And you're not going to be as cute. So really take advantage of time on your side. This is the time. And the other key part is, we always talk about pay yourself first. That's the advantage of having money coming directly out of your paycheck before you get your hot little hands on it, and it goes into your long-term savings. If you take the other approach of, I'll pay my bills first, I'll be responsible, I'll pay my student loans, I'll pay my credit card debt, and then I'll save, chances are you're not going to have anything left to save. So do take advantage of that automatic enrollment. Don't stop at the 3%. Maybe you can't do more initially, but every time you get a raise, bump up a little bit more. Your future self will thank you. Now, we talked about the Roth IRA. There's also a bit of a
Misconception
there. So let's talk about why that's important.
Yeah, so how many people here use a Roth IRA in their savings? I'll do another hand, and not the thrift savings, but a true Roth IRA. So Roth IRAs offer a really important aspect here, which we kind of term as tax diversification. So most likely, right, the people in this room, a lot of Americans will have tax-deferred savings. So that's your traditional salary deferral 401k. Now, like diversifying investments or anywhere else in life, it's helpful to diversify among taxes because, as you saw this last year, we don't exactly know where taxes are going to be each and every year. We have the Tax Cut and Job Act, brings taxes down. Well, that's actually a good time then to consider using Roth savings. If you're in a temporarily lower tax bracket, it's a good time to pay taxes now and then defer essentially all that growth out into the future. You'll receive tax-free in the end. Now, if your tax rate's very high, it's a good time to do tax deferral, right? Not pay taxes today and defer that out into the future. In retirement, most Americans are going to be in a lower tax rate. But we don't know that for sure. So the benefit is have some after-tax money, have some Roth tax treatment, and then have some tax deferral. It spreads out the risk of changing tax rates over time. And I don't think anyone in this room would expect that tax rates are going to be exactly the same today as they are in 60 years when you're retired, right?
And the other point, we have a new tax law that took effect this year, and that it expires in 2026. And some people would argue we may be in the lowest tax rate we may ever see. This may be a great time to contribute to a Roth where you get no upfront tax deduction and let all that future growth come out in the future tax-free.
Or even doing something called Roth conversion. So you're actually taking traditional money over the next couple years and converting it over. Now, another really interesting thing about the Roth aspect we want to bring up, that this is very valuable for young savers. Generally speaking, early in your career, you're going to be making less money than hopefully you are later on. So you're in a lower tax rate. So that's also a good avenue for Roth. Now, another thing, the question that people actually got wrong here was talking about your own Roth IRA contributions. This is actually an encouragement for young savers to put money in and still have access to funds in case something else goes wrong. You can withdraw your own contributions to a Roth IRA really at any time without penalty tax or really negative tax implications. That's incredibly different than the IRA, the 401k. Typically, if you try to pull your own money out of tax-deferred accounts, you're not only going to pay ordinary income tax on it, but you're going to get hit with a 10% penalty tax. So there is a real benefit for young savers that don't have a lot of emergency funds to save in a Roth, to get that tax advantage growth in there, but still have some access to your own funds. Now, obviously, we want to try to keep that in there for retirement as much as possible, but for young savers, that's a reality that we might have healthcare expenses, buying a house. There's a lot of things that could come up where we might need some access.
And also, that's a great point about that escape hatch. We talked about there is a Roth component to the TSP, and it's a little bit different than a Roth IRA when it comes to the escape hatch. What's one of the big differences?
Yeah, one of the big differences is going to be your access to that, this pro-rata nature. The ability to pull out just your contributions first is a lot harder if you're in a 401 or federal thrift savings plan. So the Roth IRA really does provide more access to your funds than the other types of savings. So that is something to consider, doing that on top of your federal thrift savings plan, not in lieu of it. We still want to make sure we get that match and all of that aspect.
Well, here's the bonus round for you. Jamie is one of the top personal finance experts in the country. He's
Very
open
nice.
to your questions. Does anybody have questions, whether generic or specific to your situation, that Jamie can answer? Don't be shy. This would cost you $300 an hour anyplace else. All right, I don't see a hand, so let's talk. Going once, going twice? Let's talk a little bit more of how the personal part of this might fit into the bigger future retirement income. This is one leg of the old three-legged stool, right?
Yeah, and so we used to talk about this three-legged stool, right? Your company, your personal, and then the government aspect. And over time, one of the things that's happened is, right, we've actually shifted more responsibility onto the individual, right? Away from pension plans, maybe some reduced government. And so that ability to understand what you need to be doing, understand your current benefits, understand the current tax system to take advantage of it, is really more important today than it's ever been before. I also think it's worth making note of, since we're here and talking about this, and Social Security is one of the big pieces, and Mary Beth is really one of the leading experts in that area. Social Security has to get reinvigorated for young individuals. It has to happen. I am too often in rooms where I ask young individuals, do you think Social Security is going to be there for you? And most of the room now has resigned themselves to the idea that it won't be there, right? That's a really upsetting thought, because it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy if young people, millennials, young workers say, well, it's not going to be there for me. Then we stop caring about it as an issue, and that really needs to flip. We need to care about it. We need to care that we've paid into it. We need to care that 2/3 of 21 to 32-year-olds have nothing saved for retirement, which goes back to one of the first comments. This room's not representative of America in the true sense of earnings and savings, right? Now, we might represent America here, but we have vastly different saving opportunities than most of America. We're small employees, don't have employer plans in place that are matching, putting in 5%. That's not the normal, right? You have a very great plan and opportunity here.
Right. All the research shows that when people have access to a retirement plan at work, they are more likely to save. Unfortunately, so many people work for small businesses. It's actually the big engine of the economy, and they're the ones who are least likely to have access to a retirement plan. But there is some legislation kicking around that would change that. Let me give you a little bit of hope, though. We're not all doom and gloom here. You've got decades to go before retirement, and your retirement's going to look a whole lot different than mine. I'm a lot closer to it. And we talked about that three-legged stool: personal savings, pensions, and Social Security. Social Security will be there for you. It may look a little bit different. You will have to rely on your personal savings, but something's going to be different. You are probably going to take advantage of the gig economy in retirement. You may be driving for Uber or Lyft at 65, and that's pretty cool. Your wife or husband may want to get you out of the house, and you may want to like the extra money. Guess what? The fastest growing group of Airbnb hosts are single women over the age of 60. They love to entertain, they've got a guest room, they like the extra money. Americans are very good at figuring out solutions. Your solution may be different than ours, But the bottom line is Social Security will continue to be a critical part of your retirement future, and you need to get behind it and demand that it's there for you. And you also need to take that personal responsibility of saving for your own future. Your future self will thank you. So Jamie, I want to thank you for your insights, for the quiz, and all of you for attending the first of what I hope will be many very interesting panels. And congratulations for taking the first step of securing your own future.
Thank
Shai,
you very
will
much for
take it
having
away?
us.